level of comfort we have in simply talking about the vestiges of slavery. I'm 60-ish, and, for at least close to half of my lifetime anyway, there was almost a denial, so to speak. But I don't want to talk about plantations and stuff like that. And say, well, that's all in the past. That's all well and good. We got to get beyond that, And you certainly didn't go visiting those places, the trading blocks. You certainly would not have had a sign outside like we have now indicating this is part of the slavery trail. So as we get farther away from it, as the shadow lengthens, it becomes easier for us to talk about this. And with that, we can now begin to do some things. As a military man in the mid-1960s, 67, I was commissioned a second lieutenant, and I had to drive from Florida to Texas to my first duty station, okay? You can do that pretty straightforward, but I drove out of the way up to Tuskegee Institute in that area to spend the night, because I knew that at least there was some comfort level with black folk near Tuskegee Institute. And then I headed on out to Texas, and I was very careful. I only stopped for gas. I had a wife and a little child, so I only stopped for gas. I had my military uniform hanging in there, and also had my legally licensed 45 under my seat, just in case, because I was very wary about that. But I spent 7 years in the Dallas area, and every time I got back, I spent more and more time going back and forward. And in about a 7-year period, I was actually visiting plantations and restaurants and stuff like that. So I kind of felt a change there. But the evidence you see here of this rising comfort level is that we have black family reunions at plantations. We recognize now that those structures were built by our ancestors who were in highly skilled craftsmen, carpenters, and that sort of thing. And that's what the list is here, and I have slides of that. But we're doing black family reunions actually at those locations. The black scuba divers have placed a marker in the Bahamas recognizing the sinking of a slave ship there as a part of our history. Historically, they say, well, we don't want to deal with that, but now they've actually dived, they've placed a marker there. And the gentleman from New York can talk to you about some of the excavations that happened maybe about a decade ago when they were doing some things in the Wall Street area. They discovered a black burial ground, and they designated that as a historic location. In previous years in Texas, they ran on through a cemetery just outside of Dallas, and just black folk, don't worry about that, just go on through that. But when they started to expand it a few years later, they recognized we can't do this. For one thing, you had a black city councilman and others who could speak for the people, and so now there's a marvelous park in the Dallas area that commemorates those individuals who are buried there. And so on. The Underground Railroad is now a national park with 2 locations, one in Dorchester County where Harriet Tubman was born, and the other in Buffalo, New York, which is pretty much the end of the line which goes across the Canadian border. So it's the only national park that has 2 locations. So these, as I said, are evidences of a rising comfort level in what I call embracing the infrastructure and superstructure of slavery. The tenor voice is smoother, mellower, like nice bourbon or whatever you might prefer there. And what we're doing, we're now celebrating some of the difficult times of the separate but equal and civil rights era. Things that were very painful at that time, we're now celebrating those not because of the pain, but because we have moved past that. So we see Memphis and Birmingham come to mind, civil rights museums there. And again, these are museums that specifically focus on the struggle. As you know, the one in Memphis is the Lorraine Motel, where Martin Luther King was assassinated. It is now an amazing museum. You have to visit it, you definitely want to do that. We recognize now that the Negro the Negro League was a very strong and viable sports group, and so Cooperstown now actually has a special situation for inducting stars of yesteryear. But there's a complete Negro baseball Hall of Fame in Kansas City. Kansas City. If you haven't been, it's an amazing place. I don't know if you have a hurry here, but certainly there's a have to share with you. When you walk in there, it's a big square rectangle room like this, and there's a wall, like fence around the baseball field, and you can look over in there, and you want to go in, and out there are 9 players, full size of legends at their position. So you look on the baseball field there, and you see these statues. But then there's a sign that says something, I can't remember exactly how it's quoted, but it basically says, you cannot take the, you want to go in, it says, you cannot take the field, thou shalt not enter until you understand their stories. And so you have to go completely around. The gallery is laid out around the field. So you have to go completely around all the galleries and see the stories, see the uniforms, the videos, et cetera, all the way around, and then you can take the field. It's an amazing experience. You really have to do that if you can. So again, that was a celebration of, again, this was a separate but equal, not a very positive time. Civil rights era, not a very positive time of struggle. But now we're finding, as we get away from the slavery era, that we're comfortable with doing that. I won't speak about every one, but I will touch on, and these you can all check out for yourself. Certainly the Tuskegee Airmen, again, a time when, for some reason, we had to prove that we could read and write, fly airplanes, and so on and so forth. That was not a great time, but it's now celebrated in museums all over. Black Wall Street, I just visited there recently in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and one of the most viable cities in the country, far more successful than the surrounding white and Native American communities. An incident happened where black men rose up to defend one of their own, and the entire city ended up being torched. But today, the fabulous museum there, fabulous experience that you want to check out. The Rosenwald schools, I think we might know about those, and well, two others, I guess a minute each and we'll move on. The alto voice here, if you ever listen to the alto voice alone in music by itself, it's very strange. If you're ever in the choir and the director says, okay, let's hear the altos. And it's always weird, you know, it can't really stand alone. I believe that represents the kind of leverage, a kind of protesting kind of situation that has happened. For example, and I list several here where we have actually used tourism to bring about economic political gain. You might recall that there was no Super Bowl in Phoenix in 1993 because they did not recognize the Martin Luther King holiday. The biggest sports event in America was the game because of that. You might recall that Miami snubbed Nelson Mandela back in around 1990 because he embraced Fidel Castro. They asked him, of all the people who supported you while you were in prison, who are those people? He mentioned Muammar Gaddafi and Fidel Castro. They're the only leaders that stayed in contact with them. You can't say Fidel Castro in Miami without people getting upset. So they pulled up the red carpet and said, Mandela, you're not welcome. And blacks completely brought about a boycott that caused some major economic difficulties there. Right here close by, we have the whole development at National Harbor there being really managed by the Prince George County people for a maximum economic gain. I was there the other day, talked to the MGM casino people, and so on and so forth. The final trend is the Soprano trend, which focuses, I believe, on reunification of the diaspora in many, many ways. And of course, by having Her Excellency here today and to talk about the B2B, that's a very clear example of what we're moving about to bring African peoples together throughout the diaspora as they go forward. I see that as a major movement. Look at 4.3, the sons and daughters of slaves are now governing the Caribbean, and of course, our own President Obama here setting the pace. So to wrap this up, I would finish with the last item there, reconciliation. As you know, the real key to South Africa is becoming a strong, viable country today, diversified, somewhat unified country, is the fact that Mandela led a reconciliation effort, okay, and because of that, the nation was not split apart, did not dissolve into power wars, and so on. So John Hope, our noted historian, has established a Center for Reconciliation in Tulsa, and it's all about that point, and we believe from that we all grow and go forward with African American tourism. And so I have wrapped this up as best I could, giving you as word pictures as best I could. And as I said, there are, I will provide this presentation to the museum or wherever it's appropriate so that you can access it from a website and with your handout and slides, you should be able to have a marvelous experience. Thank you for your interest and indulgence, and have a wonderful day.